I invited my son-in-law and my longtime family doctor aboard my private yacht to thank them for their years of care. The doctor told me I was in excellent health, a picture of strength at 75. But that night, as the waves rocked the Seraphine, I overheard them whispering in the dark. The plan is perfect. By tomorrow, the widow will be gone. The entire fortune will be ours. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments what time it is where you are now. My name is Margaret Hale. I'm 75 years old, a widow, and the mother of one daughter, Clara. My late husband, Richard, built one of the largest logistics companies in the Midwest. After his sudden passing 5 years ago, the empire and the family fortune rested in my hands. People assumed I would fade into the background, a grieving woman too old to fight battles. They were wrong. Still, I wasn't invincible. Grief clung to me, and loneliness became my shadow. That's when my daughter's husband, Daniel, stepped in. He became the one helping me with company papers, finances, and everyday matters. And my longtime physician, Dr. Harold Whitman, kept assuring me that despite my age, I was remarkably healthy. I thought I was lucky to have them both. To Daniel, I was grateful. To Dr. Whitman, I was trusting. To Clara, I was still a mother who wanted to give, not burden. So when I invited Daniel and Dr. Whitman on a cruise through the Gulf of Mexico aboard my yacht, the Seraphine, I thought it was an act of kindness, a thank you for all their care. To me, that boat was a sanctuary, a moving palace filled with memories of Richard. To them, as I would soon learn, it was meant to be my tomb. Earlier that morning, Dr. Whitman had smiled after a casual checkup in my stateroom. "You're fit as a fiddle, Margaret," he said, pressing the stethoscope against my chest. "Your heart's steady, your lungs clear. This trip is just what you need." His tone was light, his smile wide, but something about the way his eyes darted to Daniel unsettled me. That night, sleep wouldn't come. I sat up in bed, staring at the ceiling, hearing the faint creaks of the yacht as it cut through the dark waters. Memories of Richard haunted me. The way he loved the sea, the way he always said the ocean had no mercy for fools. Restless, I wrapped a shawl around my shoulders and walked the empty deck, the Caribbean breeze heavy with salt and blossoms drifting from some unseen shore. That's when I heard it. Voices, faint, muffled, coming from the main lounge. I paused, pressing myself against the polished wood. It was Daniel, my own son-in-law. "The timing is everything," he whispered, his usually smooth voice quivering. "Are you certain she won't feel anything?" Harold's voice followed, calm and clinical. "The dosage is exact. It will mimic a massive heart attack. Perfectly untraceable. She'll feel weak, maybe dizzy, and then it will look like nature simply took its course. In 48 hours, Margaret will be gone." My knees almost buckled. My heart slammed against my ribs, not from poison but from pure betrayal. My breath turned to ice in my throat. Harold continued, his tone chilling. "Once she passes, Daniel, you'll inherit everything through Clara. The plan is flawless. By the time we dock in Key West, the fortune will be yours." For a moment, the world blurred. These were men I had trusted, one with my health, the other with my family. And here they were, conspiring to erase me like I was nothing but an obstacle between them and Richard's empire. I gripped the brass railing so hard my knuckles ached. Panic threatened to consume me. But Richard's voice echoed in my head, as if from years past. "Never let them see you bleed, Margaret. Even when the sharks circle, you must look like steel." I did not storm into that lounge. I did not scream. Instead, I turned slowly, quietly, and walked back to my cabin. Every step was deliberate, my mind already racing. In the mirror, my reflection stared back, an old woman with silver hair and tired eyes. That's what they saw. Weak, disposable. But I knew better. Behind these wrinkles was the same woman who had stood beside Richard through every boardroom war, every betrayal, every sleepless night spent outmaneuvering rivals. I wasn't just a grieving widow. I was still a strategist. I reached for the one gift Richard had given me on our 50th anniversary. A platinum Jaeger-LeCoultre watch. To anyone else it was jewelry. But Richard had it modified, secretly, years ago. 3 presses of the crown in rapid succession activated a silent distress signal. Not a call to strangers, but to the yacht's captain, Isabella Cortez, a woman whose loyalty to me was absolute. The Seraphine wasn't just a yacht. It was my fortress. Within moments, the hidden system was alive. In the captain's quarters, a screen lit up red. Seraphine protocol engaged. Isabella Cortez was no ordinary captain. Former military intelligence, she'd been handpicked by Richard himself, then kept on by me. Her contract had contingencies buried so deep Daniel would never dream they existed. One clause in particular gave her full authority to neutralize any threat to the owner's safety by any means necessary. Now, as I sat in my cabin, the plan shifted. I wasn't the prey anymore. I was the trap. But the most excruciating part was still ahead. I had to play the role of the frail, oblivious mother for the next 24 hours. I had to smile at Daniel, thank Harold for his kindness, and pretend I didn't know that every glance, every toast, every polite word was a mask covering their murderous intent. The next evening at dinner, Daniel poured me a glass of Burgundy with a practiced smile. "Mother, you look tired. Are you feeling all right?" His eyes glittered with false concern. I lifted the glass slowly, my hand trembling, not from poison, but from rage barely contained. "Just thinking of your father-in-law," I whispered, soft enough to seem fragile. "He always said the sea holds no secrets." Harold cleared his throat. His smile faltered for a heartbeat. Then he leaned forward. "Margaret, Richard would want you at peace. To rest. To let go of all these worries." Inside I burned. Outwardly I nodded. "Yes, perhaps you're right. Perhaps peace is closer than we think." They smiled, smug and convinced the poison was doing its work. What they didn't know was that Isabella had already switched the vials in Harold's medical kit, analyzing the compound in the ship's hidden lab and preparing the antidote for me. What they didn't know was that I had outlived worse men than them. And what they didn't know was that their time was running out. Daniel leaned back in his chair, sipping from his wine glass like a man rehearsing ownership of the world. The dim lights of the dining room cast a warm glow on his smug expression, while Dr. Whitman carefully buttered a piece of bread. His every movement irritatingly calm. To them, the performance was over. The curtain had nearly dropped on me. But they didn't know the show had only just begun. I placed my trembling hand against my chest, letting my breath falter as if fatigue were setting in. Daniel leaned forward instantly, feigning concern. "Margaret, are you all right?" Inside, fury burned hot enough to scorch, but outwardly, I gave him a weak smile. "Just a little tired," I whispered. "The sea air. It must be too strong for me." His lips curved in a smile he tried to hide. Whitman's eyes met his briefly, an exchange that told me everything. They believed their poison was working. "Perhaps an early night then," Whitman said softly, his voice oozing false sympathy. "Rest is best." "Yes," I murmured. "Rest." I rose slowly, gripping the back of my chair for effect. My knees did not shake from weakness but from the sheer force of controlling myself. I walked out of the dining room, every step echoing in my ears like a drumbeat. When the door shut behind me, I heard them exhale in relief. They thought they had won. But in the hidden lab below deck, Isabella Cortez was already working. The vial Harold had prepared, the so-called untraceable poison, was being analyzed under her skilled hands. A counteragent was secured, though she'd already switched the doses earlier to ensure nothing harmful touched my lips. I stepped into my private cabin, the walls lined with photographs of Richard and Clara. My husband's steady gaze in those pictures gave me strength. "We built this empire together, Richard," I whispered under my breath. "I will not let jackals steal it from me." Hours bled into dawn. The sea was calm, golden light spilling across the waves. At breakfast, I arrived at the table slowly, moving with the deliberate pace of a woman fading into frailty. Daniel stood to pull out my chair. "Mother, you really don't look well," he said, masking glee as concern. "Don't fuss," I answered softly. "I just didn't sleep." Whitman poured me tea himself, as if every gesture sealed my fate. His confidence was infuriating, but I met it with serenity. "You're very kind, Harold," I said, forcing my lips into a frail smile. "So kind to look after me all these years." He nodded gravely, as though already rehearsing his eulogy at my funeral. By noon, the yacht neared Key West. I heard Daniel outside my cabin speaking with Whitman. Their voices carried, just enough for me to catch. "Tonight," Daniel muttered. "She won't make it through the night." Whitman's reply was chilling in its certainty. "Her decline will look natural. By tomorrow, you'll have the papers in motion." I almost laughed. Tomorrow. They thought tomorrow belonged to them. But tomorrow was mine. That evening, Isabella came to me quietly. "Madam," she whispered, her Spanish accent low and certain, "it is ready. Everything is in place." I pressed her hand. "Thank you, Isabella. Tonight we end this." At dinner, the air was thick with expectation. Daniel poured my wine again, Harold watching carefully. I lifted the glass with trembling hands, sipping slowly. My body language was everything. They needed to believe I was slipping away. Halfway through the meal, I let the glass fall from my hand, shattering against the floor. I gasped, clutching at my chest. "So dizzy," I whispered, letting my head fall against my arm. Daniel shot up instantly, panic flashing through his mask. "Mother! Harold, do something." Whitman was beside me in seconds, his stethoscope already in hand. He pressed it to my chest, nodding grimly. "Her pulse is weak. We need to get her to bed immediately." They half carried me to my cabin, laying me on the bed. I kept my eyes fluttering shut, shallow breaths escaping my lips. Daniel hovered nervously, sweat beading on his forehead. Whitman leaned close to him and whispered, "It's happening. She'll be gone before dawn." The moment they stepped out of my cabin, Isabella activated the final stage of the Seraphine protocol. Security cameras hidden in every corridor came alive, recording every movement, every whisper, every damning word. An hour later, Isabella invited Daniel and Whitman to the main lounge under the pretense of a celebratory drink. Suspicious, Daniel hesitated, but Whitman urged him on. "We can't hover over her like vultures. Appear normal." They entered the lounge, only to find the large screen flickering on. Suddenly, their own faces appeared, their own voices echoing back at them. "The dosage is exact, perfectly untraceable. She'll be gone in 48 hours." Daniel froze. Whitman's glass slipped from his hand, crashing to the floor. The recording continued, playing every word they had spoken about my death, their greed, their flawless plan. And then the screen went black. The doors locked with a heavy clang. Isabella's voice rang out from the intercom, sharp as steel. "Gentlemen, you are confined. Mrs. Hale is alive. And she knows everything." At that moment, I entered the room. No longer frail, no longer trembling. I walked in upright, steady, with fire in my eyes. Daniel's jaw dropped. Whitman's face turned ashen. "You," Daniel stammered. "You were supposed to die." I finished for him. "Yes, I heard. I heard every word that left your mouth, Daniel. And you, Harold, the doctor I trusted for 3 decades. You plotted to poison me in exchange for scraps from my fortune." Whitman tried to recover, raising his hands. "Margaret, please, you misunderstood." "Misunderstood." I spat, my voice shaking the room. "The cameras don't misunderstand. The microphones don't lie. Your own words condemn you." Daniel lunged forward, desperate, but Isabella stepped in, her sidearm drawn and steady. "Sit down," she ordered coldly. For once, Daniel obeyed. I approached him slowly, my eyes never leaving his. "You thought I was weak, disposable. Just an old widow standing in the way of your greed. But you forgot who I am. I built this life with Richard. I survived wars in boardrooms you couldn't last a day in. And I will not be killed by cowards like you. Whitman collapsed into a chair, burying his face in his hands. Daniel, still seething, finally broke. You can't prove. The screen lit up again, this time showing live footage of the ship's servers transmitting files. Isabella's calm voice narrated. All recordings and transcripts are being uploaded to federal authorities and Margaret Hale's legal team. Proof enough. Daniel's face went pale. His empire of lies crumbled in an instant. I turned my back on them, my final words cutting sharper than any blade. Enjoy your last night of freedom, Daniel. By sunrise, the only fortune you'll inherit is a prison cell. The next morning, authorities were waiting at the dock. Daniel and Dr. Whitman were taken away in handcuffs, their faces drained of arrogance. Clara wept when she learned the truth, torn between grief and shame. As for me, I stood on the deck of the Seraphine, the sun rising over the waves. I was still here, alive, stronger than ever. Richard's voice echoed in my mind. Even when the sharks circle, Margaret, you must look like steel. And I had. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.